Yeah, you're on now, so you can take it away when you're ready. Talk about whatever you want.
All right, yes, sir. So, definitely a lot of stuff that's been in my mind is, I'm a political science, I'm a history major. I learn all this stuff about, like, Canadian politics and that, and you learn things just, like, about the country in general and the people and that. Mm-hmm. And, just, like, learning all this stuff, I've come to really enjoy people, I think, above all else.
Really?
As when you get into history, when you get into politics, you realize very quickly that everything falls apart unless you know people, unless you see people, unless you understand people. Because school tries to separate the people from school. University, as diverse and as politically sound as it is, and you're just in a learning atmosphere, you kind of seem that you're in two different areas that are all about people, but it seems like you meet way less people in school. You talk to less and less people, especially as you go up, you see less people. But politics and history, it all focuses on people. And when you learn that much about people, and you really try to just see everything as people, you kind of understand all sides of people, whether it be the good or the bad. You just kind of see all sides of that. And I think it's really cool, because in a way you fall in love with the concept of people. In historical schools of thought, there has been different thoughts that say that, like, when we're studying history and we're looking at the past, you're looking at people and their story. And the stories are what's important, and the people are what's important. So in a way you can fall in love with people. Even as, like, politics, they, kind of divide people, and they bring everybody kind of, like, around, and this side, whether it be this political party or this kind of tradition and that. They try to divide people. But a lot of people have similar stories to tell, and it's those stories that are important, that really drive people to love each other and to understand each other. So I think that's just an amazing thing about the world, and about especially this country in Canada, because rather than just reading like a book and keeping your head locked in theory or ideas, you begin to recall your own experiences and your own things in life and the people you meet. And all these things are far more amazing than anything you can learn in school. Because the one thing that people learn from is other people. Even when you're studying like math or something, you're not figuring out everything on your own. You're reading about, oh yeah, this guy discovered this thing, and now you're going to reapplicate that. So you can't avoid history, and you can't avoid people, no matter how hard you try or whatever system of the world you're in. But people are wonderful, and you gotta like meet people, you gotta talk to people. So when it comes to just like learning or like trying to love the world and stay away from, hate or anger or, divides, just think about just like different people, like all kinds of people. Like be glad that you live in a world where everybody's different, where everybody can be bad or good, and you can cast your own judgment on whether or not these things are bad or good. That things are interesting enough that you can even consider having like small friend group, large friend group. You're not like forced into all these like awful ideas. Like you're allowed to have your own free thought, and a lot of that comes from the people you meet. Your ideas come from the people you meet. The more people you talk to, and the more people you find, people you fall in love with, people you want to be friends with forever, people who are kind of like your chosen family, like that's real learning. And that's like stuff no school will ever teach you. Like school is good and all, but I've been in school like 3 years, and I'm trying to shoot for master's, PhD in this double major, and that's a lot of school. And you need to get outside and see like your friends and see all these other like ideas and stuff, because otherwise you get kind of in a bubble. And as somebody who studies, it's like, how can you actually like study history or political science if you like don't even know what happened like to that old restaurant on the corner of your road? If you don't even know like the city you live in itself, you don't know the people around you, then that can almost create divide between people, and like you versus your city, you versus the world. So instead of loving people and loving the things you study, that's what a lot of people say. They say like nurses and doctors, the stress of their job kind of makes them a little more angsty, a little cold, anti-people. People talk about stories of, my doctor's so cross with me. It's like he just wants me in there and wants to get me out. But if you knew people, like if you had a friend that was a doctor, a friend who talks about like, people are yelling at me a lot, saying they don't believe me, or, you know, I have to tell people that their son is dying, stuff like that. Like, you know, you gain perspective just by learning things. So, I mean, you want to fix, like, world issues and stuff. You want to get into politics. You want to get into history. Like, unless you actually know people, unless you've actually met people, you can't really understand anything about it. You can't really understand, like, anything, like, about the world, even if you're just going to be like a math teacher the rest of your life. You still need to know more than math. Just like historians need to know more than just history. You need to apply it to other things to say, okay, well, I know this thing, now what does it matter? Because, I mean, what historian is going to go into his field and go into his study, and he'll learn everything about, let's say, the Mongolia Empire, about the Khans, about the Mongol invasions. He learns all this stuff, but then he just kind of sits there and he goes, damn, like, I don't really think I helped anybody by just learning all of that. Because he didn't meet people, he didn't talk to people. Because sometimes just having that information and just knowing it, regurgitating it, well, then he writes papers. Then he writes papers about what he knows. He talks to people, he talks to his colleagues, professors, and everything. And the writing of that paper and the sharing of that information, that's important, is the sharing of information. But if he never shares the information, if he never puts it on paper and sends it around, or he doesn't talk to people, then, you know, even if you know everything, you're worth nothing if you don't, you know, bring it around to people, if it doesn't come back to people. Learning from people or learning for people, all that stuff is super important. And it's super enjoyable overall. Because a lot of people are lonely, like in a modern world of, you know, information and communication. A lot of people are by themselves, they're alone, and, you know, you see, like, mental illness, like, coming at an increase. So I think that's kind of, a lot of this stuff is a lot of isolation. It's like loneliness, it's separation. Because you have all these things, like, you know, you have things and you like things. It's not wrong to, you know, like, they say, oh, it's because everybody's inside watching TV. That's why nobody's communicating. I mean, you could watch TV and communicate and have friends. It's not one or the other. But for a lot of people, sometimes, like, the choice is obvious. Like, you know, don't talk to people, talk to people. There's so much less risk or anxiety involved in just, like, not putting yourself out there in the world and talking to as many people as you can. I mean, even as the kind of social people, like, you know, you get radical political people or people of super strong beliefs. Often, they're not talking to large groups of people who think differently, who act differently, who have this diverse thought. They're talking like echo chambers, if they are talking to a lot of people. Maybe like a little online site that's geared towards people like them, that pumps some information to people like them. And sure, okay, you're getting people. That's good. Maybe it's good that you have a community and you have people to talk to. But the more people you see and the more things you meet, maybe it matures you, makes you happier to know, like, the things you do and you don't like. Because there are people in the world that are also living in it, not just you, and it's not about what those people can offer you right away. It's not about the experiences. I mean, a lot of people end up in awful situations because of other people. But with more insight and wisdom and knowledge and meeting more people, then, you know, life becomes better. Especially when you're in history and political science and you think, okay, so I'm learning history to learn about people, but I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not going to any shows with people who've lived these things, or I'll learn about, like, all of, like, the history of the African slaves, or about the Muslim rising empires, which are both very popular subjects of mine, and I take those a lot. But in reality, it's like I don't think I've ever talked to these, like, any people who would, like, of course I've talked to, you know, Arabic or Muslim people, or and you know, black people, but there's like a disconnect between that and history. Of you're talking not about anybody who's facing the repercussions of that, or you're not reading about anybody who's facing that. So you actually have to meet people to kind of learn, like, you know, how does this information better people, or how does it let me interact with people, and all of that. And yeah, I think it's, and as we near a stop here, I'll wrap it up.
Alright.
So.
Well, that was pretty interesting, man. So any, like, final advice for people who can't, like, who struggle with meeting new people?
Well, for any advice to struggle with meeting new people, I recommend any kind of, like, activity club. I think there's like an ungodly amount of clubs in like the world, and even in like any city, that you'll just never hear of.
Like what?
Unless you actually listen to it. Well, when I was in high school, I joined the Windsor rugby team. But not many people know that Windsor has a rugby team.
Right.
But I found it and I joined it, and I met new people. And that was a lot of different people. So just try to join clubs, try to join groups. People in high school, try to join little clubs or try something new. A lot of people go to bars and, you know, get something regular going. Find like a karaoke night or a dance club and go there regularly, and you meet people, definitely. Getting out there is important. But
all right, makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, man.
No
Much appreciated.
problem. No problem, my boy.
All right.
Have yourself a good night,
Yeah,
sir.
you too. By the way, if you're gonna check out the channel, it's called Ride Light. All right, this is the logo up here. Ride Light, one word, like highlight.
Ride light.
All right.
All right. I'll be able to find that, dude.
One word. All right. Take care.
Awesome.
Good night.